Hi everybody. So this week is a bit of a frustrating week. I have actually filmed this specific video several times because I have been having issues with my microphone that have been absolutely terrible on the sound quality. So hopefully this time will be the time that actually works well. For that reason, I have put aside the video that I was trying to do for the week, which was, finishing up the series on how to design a basic exercise program. So unfortunately, you are going to have to wait another week for that one. I tried filming it a few times. The result was messy. I just decided it wasn't working out. So I decided to do something a little bit shorter, a little bit quicker, which is basically just, what is the real cost of getting jacked? What is the total cost that it really takes to get in great shape? So that's the topic for this week. I'm going to start off by saying that I'm certainly not the most jacked person in the world, right? Basically, I'm in great shape. A lot of people would be envious of the shape that I'm in. I will admit that I probably have above average genetics, if that was a thing that you could really measure. So I have had it easier than some people, and I would recommend taking some of my advice with a bit of a grain of salt sometimes, because I do have it a bit easier than some people. The reality is also that if you are trying to be good at anything, in terms of being good, or in terms of being great, or in terms of being world class, it's going to require a lot of effort, a lot of sacrifice. You're going to have to go through a lot of failure. You're going to have to really think in the long term and act in the long term. It may take you years or even decades to really get to that point where you are really sort of pushing the limits of what you can achieve. And that's the same with basically, again, any sort of anything, not just lifting. It's also going to be, learning a new skill, learning to paint, learning a new language, learning to play an instrument, learning a totally, new sort of career skill so that you can, further your career. All of that stuff takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and at the end of the day, maybe it's worth it and maybe it's not. And so that's sort of what the discussion is today, is basically, the amount of effort that you have to put into it to get swole, and also just, is that worth it for you? So, as always, don't forget to like and comment, help out the algorithm, get other people seeing this video as well. So, to start off with my personal history, basically I started out, I was a nerdy, skinny, 140-pound kid. So many bodybuilders are. Virtually every bodybuilder in the world has some kind of before picture, honestly, where they were like a teenager and, they were super tiny, because that's just how it is. Like, no one just comes out, totally jacked. Everyone gets there by, going through this process first. And so, when I was a kid, I just really liked playing video games and reading books or whatever. And my dad basically got into exercising a bit later on in life because he realized that he had some blood pressure issues. And so I would sort of go to the gym with him and, just sort of do stuff that was a bit fun or, whatever. Didn't really have any plans or goals in mind. But, I just sort of did some stuff and had some fun. And then basically in high school, I went through a phase where I was doing running. So I was in cross country and track. I realized that I wasn't really any good at it and that I hated it. So I stopped doing that. I have written a lot before about how I have dealt with depression and anxiety issues in high school. I had a lot of bodily image issues as well at the time, so I went through all of that, and I went to a therapist, and my therapist basically said, okay, well, you really need to exercise some more. It's going to help you manage this anxiety. And I had tried running, and I knew that I didn't really enjoy that much. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try this lifting thing. So, I went to my local YMCA, and I tried out all the different weight machines, and I really kind of got hooked really quickly, I just really enjoyed it. And so, I started doing weight machines and just sort of, seeing how far I could push myself on those. I did all kinds of core exercises. There was one phase in my life where I actually got one of those crunch, sit-up benches, and basically I had it in my home, and I would, put it in front of the TV, and I would watch a half-hour-long program, and I would just do sit-ups endlessly because, I would just see how many I could do within that half hour. And At the time, I was really into Bruce Lee, so I was like, okay, Bruce Lee says you have to do a ton of cores, so that's what I'm gonna do. I don't really think I ever got anything out of it, honestly. But whatever. That's what I did. So I spun my wheels for a few years. I slowly gravitated towards kind of what I do today. Getting more into bodybuilding style stuff, following these programs that I saw on bodybuilding.com. Getting more into sort of like those strict bodybuilding style splits. Getting more into free weights, but still just sort of doing random stuff that felt good, just whatever I felt like doing at the time. And it was only around 5 or 6 years of training, consistently, but not really with any direction or serious goals, that I started to really get serious about it. And that was the time, that I started getting my personal training certification. I started reading up pretty voraciously pretty much anything that I could find that had to do with the science of training, trying to figure out sort of the best way to structure programs and design programs to reach certain goals. I got really into powerlifting at the time. So I started lifting a lot of heavy weights and following all these sort of powerlifting style programs that you see everywhere on the internet nowadays. And that was what I did for a few years. I went through high points, I went through low points, everybody does. Definitely sort of the worst low point was that I was working a job that was a pretty heavy physical labor intensive job. I would work 10 to 12 hours a day. I would work Saturdays as well. And basically what I would do is on Saturday night after I was done with my work for the week, that was the only time of the week that I could do a deadlift because, of course, my back needed to be fresh and recovered by the time I went into work again because it needed to be strong to be able to carry around all the things that I was carrying. And so, I would work out like Saturday night, do my deadlift workout, and then that way I would be recovered again by Tuesday morning so that I could, start carrying stuff around at work again. And so I didn't have a lot of energy, didn't have a lot of time to work out, and ultimately I actually hurt my knee as well working at that job. And so that actually really held me back for a couple of years because I had to be very careful about sort of what kind of leg exercises I could do. I couldn't really squat without pain for a while, and so that really, sort of sucked for quite a long time. But, eventually I got out of it. So I did a serious bulk, cut a lot of weight, went through a phase where, I was building my business, so I was really focusing on, getting clients and making stuff for my blog, and so I didn't really have as much time to focus on working out. But, I still managed to sort of work out intelligently, get smarter about my programming and still hit PRs and sort of hit my goals, even though I was, sort of going through the ups and downs of more and less motivation. A couple years ago, I started seeing sort of diminishing returns in terms of my strength. So I was like, okay, well, that's, I need a little bit of a change. So I started focusing a little bit more on size-focused training for a little while. And that's kind of still where I'm at right now. I've also been doing a bit more cardio just because I feel that I need to. And I'm still seeing progress again, but it's slow. Like, I've been at it for a long time. I'm really hitting that phase of diminishing returns. And so, sometimes for me, it can go 6 months or a year before I really see serious progress in terms of my strength or something like that, simply because it just takes that long for me to see that progress now that I've been working out for so long. So, the question of, okay, how much time have I invested in this, right? Because ultimately, it's not just about the amount of time that I spent in the gym. There's also, all the time that I spent driving to the gym. I used to live, in a place where I was like 10 or 15 minutes away from my local gym. So, it wasn't just the hour and a half or so that I would work out. It's also the half hour or so that I would take getting to and from the gym and, messing around in the locker room, taking showers and, all that sorts of stuff that is all sort of tied up in the amount of time that it took me to work out. There's also just, the amount of psychological effort that you put into it, because there's things like, okay, you're thinking about, learning new things in terms of how to program. You're thinking about, okay, is my program working? Is my program not working? Do I need to put more thought into this? Do I need to just tell myself to relax and keep on what I'm doing? There's times where, okay, your diet sucks because, you're cutting and you're low calorie and you're just sort of, you feel like garbage all the time, or, you just wake up one day and you just have no energy and you're like, that sucks. And sometimes maybe it's because you push yourself a bit hard and you're just super sore everywhere. All of that stuff bleeds into the rest of your life as well, right? And it wasn't just, of course, the amount that I spent training. It was the fact that I dedicated a career to this. I really put in the effort to become a coach, to become a trainer, and to learn to coach and train other people. and that is, first of all, it's a really powerful, important thing. I think that most people are used to training themselves, and you learn so many more things simply from training other people because you start to see the real range of reactions to various exercises and stimuli. You start to see how different people react differently to different programs. And that means that you don't really know a lot until you start coaching other people. And in coaching other people is how I learned to coach myself. It's how I really learned to figure out, okay, what generally works best for a lot of people and how to apply that to my own training and to learn where, in some cases I'm full of shit, where I, just something that is generally beneficial for people, but that I've been avoiding or putting off just because I don't like it. So, there's the fact that I spent this whole career, and yes, it paid the bills, it put food on my table, but do I recommend to everybody that you have to, switch careers or, start an entirely new career and become a personal trainer just so that you can become a bit better of a lifter? Well, obviously that seems a bit silly because you don't have to do that. There's also just the financial cost in terms of how much money that I've spent on this hobby over the years. If you go to your local gym, it's typically going to cost you about $30 a month or so, and it can be a lot more if you're in a big city, maybe a little bit less. It all just sort of depends on where you live, but that adds up. Over a year, $30 a month becomes $360 a year. There's supplements. So I would say maybe about $100 every 4 to 6 months on more protein powder and creatine. If you're buying, a lot more supplements than that, it's going to cost you a lot more money as well. There's fitness equipment. I have spent money on squat shoes, on multiple lifting belts, on various gadgets, on home dumbbells, on bicep blasters and BFR cuffs. And, I've spent, money on a home gym. At one point, living in Michigan, and I was working out, mostly from a home gym that I had assembled. I had a squat rack, I had a bench, I had a bar and some plates, and I had, some dumbbells and a bunch of other stuff that I'd cobbled together. And, realistically, I spent about $800 to $1,000 or so on it. And, it did save me a couple years worth of gym membership fees, but at the same time, I didn't really need to save those gym membership fees because I was working at a gym, so I got a free gym membership anyway. And I never actually sold all of that stuff when I moved out. I was planning on selling it all on eBay or on Craigslist or something like that, but ultimately when I was forced to move out of that house, I didn't really have the time to do all of that, and so I just left it there. The guys that still live at that house, who used to be my roommates, they still have that equipment, and, realistically, it's still there. I mean, maybe they get some use out of it, I don't know, but a lot of it is probably, at this point, rusting. There's also just the fact that I've spent a lot of time and effort. I've passed up a lot of opportunities in my life. I can remember so many times that I have gone to work out on a Friday night, even though I sort of wanted to go out and do things just because that was the only time that I had to work out. One year I worked out on Christmas. So I had this weird idea in my head that, I had woken up on Christmas and I, opened up all my gifts with the family. I had this weird idea like, I need to go into the gym and attempt a deadlift PR. And I don't even know why I had that idea in mind in retrospect, and it's kind of silly. Holidays are holidays for a reason. You're supposed to take time off. But instead of, doing that, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to try and hit a deadlift PR, and then I'm going to go home. So I didn't even change into proper gym clothes. I just kept on my, Christmas, pajama pants or whatever, and I went to the gym, and I actually did pull a deadlift PR, and I was like, Merry Christmas to me, I guess, but, in retrospect, it's really kind of weird that I felt the need to go work out on a Christmas when I should have just been enjoying myself and taking the holiday off. There's also just the fact that, I don't drink much, I don't go out much, I don't party much, and that's all because, very often it'll be something like, okay, I was supposed to do a workout earlier today, and it turns out that I wasn't able to get it in earlier, so now I have to work out late at night, after I'm done with work, and, then, you just don't have the time to do a lot of other things because you're focusing all of that time and effort into going to the gym. And again, of course, there's all the time that you spent learning how to do these things, spinning your wheels. in the process of becoming good at anything, you're necessarily going to waste a lot of time being crap at something. You have to learn to be crap at something before you can sort of start filtering out what's the crap and what isn't, so that you can become good at something. And so, again, the first maybe 5 or 6 years that I was training, I probably wasn't really getting much of any results, but I was still having a blast. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, I'm not ever really going to use steroids. I'm not ever going to set, a powerlifting world record or anything like that. And that's because there are these costs to continuing to push it further like that. You can, in some ways, endanger your health. You can, in some ways, overwork yourself and put yourself at more risk for health problems later on in life. And do I really, want to do that? Well, at the end of the day, no. And so, I've made the decision that I am sort of really dedicated to this, sort of hobby. I'm going to continue being dedicated to it because at the end of the day, I just really like it. I just really enjoy working out. If I, skip a day or two, where I just, am feeling lazy or whatever, I feel fine about that. But then I'm like, oh, man, I feel really bad because it sort of structures my whole week. Like, it really organizes my whole life. And that is such a natural, normal part of my schedule that it feels weird not to have it at the end of the day. And there are people who are not going to get as far as me. So realistically, you can see most of your results in a couple years of serious training. And that's assuming that you skip the phase where you're spinning your wheels, which you can do if you have a good coach to help guide you to make sure that you are, sort of skipping over that phase and going right to the good stuff. So, if you are spending just 2 or 3 years or so, you're going to achieve about sort of 80% or so of the results that you're ultimately going to achieve thanks to diminishing returns. And that is the decision point. That's the point where you decide, okay, I'm good at this and or I really like this and I want to see it through. I want to continue to put effort into this for more years and decades to come. Or that is the point where you see what, where you're at and you decide, okay, maybe I don't like this as much as I thought. Maybe this really isn't for me. I need to focus on finding something else to do that I'm really more excited about or better at. And that's not a bad thing, right? Like, people might think that that's, I'm quitting, I'm giving up, that's bad. But, really, there's no shame in that. There's no shame in being smart enough to recognize when you're not getting what you want in terms of the amount of time invested versus what you're getting in return. And if you're at that point, there's, again, no shame in taking a step back, deciding that you want to simply focus a little bit more on, just sort of the health side of things, focusing on, just sort of getting the maximum possible results for the minimum amount of effort, and just find other things in your life to be passionate about, for real. So it's not really a question of, okay, can I get better? Because the answer is yes, you can always get better. You can always put more and more effort in, and you can always get a tiny bit better. But at the end of the day, the question is more, okay, is the amount of effort that it is going to take to put into this to get better worth it? And for many people, as that effort, increases per unit of result that you want, sooner or later you're going to hit that point where it's not worth it to you, where it really isn't. And again, that's the point where you step back, you find something else to do. It's going to be the same with anything. It's going to be the same, again, with any skill, with any new sort of thing that you're trying to be good at. And so I am a huge, huge, huge proponent of quitting. I am a huge proponent of, okay, just find what clicks. Do not try and force it if it doesn't. So that's really it for the video today. As always, like, comment, share, tell me what you want to see in future videos, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one.